Good evening. It's March 12th. Welcome to the Finance Committee meeting. People must wonder what we talk about before the mic goes live, huh? Anyways, looks like a fun evening planned tonight. I don't have a lot of comments as usual, so Mr. Johnson, I'm going to right to you.
Sure. First item on your agenda is, I believe, Article 10, just confirming the vote. It wasn't on the agenda at the last meeting, but you did discuss the matter. So, any questions on that? That is relating to the water pipe infrastructure improvements, just about $1.8 million, and that would be in borrowing.
So I believe I had moved favorable action.
I believe you are correct. I forget who's.
I'll second your move.
Okay.
All right. Andrew, you didn't have any questions, did you, before we?
No,
Okay.
I have not caught up with that, so
All right.
I'm going to abstain.
All right, cool. All right. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Aye.
Had two abstentions.
Nine.
Ron and
Ron.
Andrew. Okay.
Okay, next, first official item on the agenda is the Personnel Board articles. If you don't mind, I'd like to invite the Personnel Board Chair up, Val DiNapoli. So, Article 2 relates to a small change in the bylaws, which is just a modification of the way the sick leave bank is set up. No, not added. I believe it's just switching the terms from every 1 year to every 3 year. It's more of an administrative nightmare for Val, for the most part. And that's the only bylaw requested change right there, recommended.
Okay. Mr. Bowen?
I'll move favorable action on
Second.
Second by Sue. Further discussion on that?
Oh, excuse me, Article 2. I'm reading the,
Yeah.
I'm reading the article within the bylaws.
Okay.
Article 2.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. I'm assuming these are going to be staggered terms, so there'll be one new person each year?
Yeah, we'll stagger it somehow. Right now, it's just one person, but we'll stagger it, yeah.
There was something that, okay. I'll bring this to him.
Quickly through you, Jim. The sick leave bank versus what we've arranged as a maximum payout when somebody leaves, those hours are different, aren't they? Or is
Yeah,
it
the sick leave, the max payout for people covered under the bylaws is, I believe, $3,500, and you have to accumulate, I believe it's 100 days on the books, have a minimum of 100 days. So that's separate from this one. This one is if I have, have some type of, get cancer or something bad happens to me, I can take an extended leave beyond what I already may have used for my personnel time.
All right. No further questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Great. Unanimous.
Okay, Article 3 is the one that kind of comes up every year. That's the living adjustments in the salary schedule. You may recall that last year we made some modifications to the salary schedule where anyone hired after July 1, 2017 went on the new schedule, which is the mid, max schedule. No more really living adjustments on a regular basis. And we got rid of the 15 steps like we had previously. And the major changes to the salary schedule, we changed the Community Development Director, just the title alone, to Community Planning Director. We did add a new position, which was a Benefits Coordinator. The purpose of that position is basically to ease some of the burden on the Personnel Department. As you know, right now, it's just on the town side, it's Valerie Donahue. This position would assist her with not only coordinating the benefits, but also dealing with the retirees on their monthly turn-ins for the insurance, handling the time cards that may come in each week. Basically, it's kind of the go-to person. I'm looking for when Val retires, which will be soon, she's given me her notification within like the next year or so, I'd like to have someone there to kind of transition that department over when we move to an HR director. So that's That's the only new position on there. And then we reclassified the veterans agent position, which we've talked a lot about, what we're doing with Medfield there, from a P9 to a P11. The recommended general living adjustment is 2%, and that's about an $83,000 impact to the budget. So,
How
anything?
about the director of assessing? Do you?
Oh, we changed the title for director of assessing from a town appraiser to director of assessing, which doesn't change the grade. It's just to be more consistent with some of the salary surveys we've done. So just a little outdated on that one. So, Bill?
So let me certainly answer any questions you might have, but as to the 2% COLA adjustment, as usual, the Personnel Board went over as much information as we could gather from different sources. 3 years ago, we brought in an expert who did a survey and advised us that our medium range of salaries was just about in between where towns were that he did under his survey. He suggested we make some adjustments to the salary schedule, which we did do on an ongoing forward basis, and we looked at those, if I may here, the employment cost index information, and looking at that number for December 2017 in public administration, the cost generally for public administration employees is about 2.8% increase from last year. We looked at the consumer price index, the average for that for 2007, the percentage increase for 2017 is 2.6%. We looked at the historical adjustments to Walpole employee groups. And what we try to do, obviously, for the non-union employees is try to have them, to the extent possible, keep pace with the union employees. Some unions in Walpole have a greater increase than the 2% we're seeking here. The one has less. Most of them are in the 2% number. And then we also compared the cost of living increases from last year and this year for other municipalities that are not only close in population, close in budget size, but in proximity generally to Walpole, and decided that, there's some as high as 3%, a few as low as 1.5%, but most of them are in the 2% range. So with that consideration, we voted unanimously for a 2% increase in COLA for this year.
Mark?
Through you, just on the veterans agent reclassification, what was the process you went through to come up with a two-position jump on the table? Was it the hours that are now being incurred because we're servicing two communities, or was it based on comparisons to other communities and what they were after?
We have a whole scorebook that we still use from back in the early 2000s when we went out and reviewed all the job descriptions. Val kept the manuals and everything. Myself, Tom Gregory at the time, and Val went through, scored the position with the added usage over in Medfield, the added responsibility that person's going to see once he moves over to the senior center, the added responsibility that, quite frankly, we really haven't updated his job description. He handles the fuel assistance, he handles the Veterans Committee, which wasn't around back when we first wrote this. The veterans work-off that's similar to the senior work-off. He also assists with the senior tax work-off. So we added all those things into the job description, and the average came to the P11 grade. So.
P9.
Yeah, P9, going from 11 to 9.
Through you. I have a question about the benefits coordinator, so I'm very happy to hear that you're making plans for Val's eventual retirement. However, I'm a little, I'm wondering, so fast forward a year or two, Val's gone, you will then have, you'll recruit behind Val, and then you'll recruit behind the benefits coordinator?
No,
So-
the intent is to have the benefits coordinator start on July 1st. I budgeted for it as part of the health insurance budget. So my intent is to hire that person, hopefully before July 1st, and have that person working side by side with Val for the next year to 6 months or so.
Right, but my question is, what happens when Val retires? Will you retain 2 positions, or will,
The intent is to retain that new position also, yes. So there'll be an HR director, call it, and this personnel benefits coordinator position.
so while I understand the need, and I've been asking about this for years to prepare for Val's eventual departure, why do we now need 2 positions? So I understand you want to have somebody as an understudy or getting ready to step in, but why now is there work for 2 positions?
The work has
Changed.
grown, and quite frankly, the Christine, who works in my office, has taken on additional hours over the last, she's been here 2 years now, I think about a year and a half. She's taken on a lot of these responsibilities, and it's grown to the point where it's taking away from some of the duties in the selectman's office, which is fine. We're all pitching in and helping out, but it really calls for a full-time position to handle a lot of this stuff.
And just help me understand what in the HR office, what additional work has come about in the last 3-5 years, let's say?
It's a lot of hand-holding. I mentioned the retirees, but it's also a lot of the Affordable Care Act has a lot more reporting than we had expected it would be, which we knew eventually it would come down, but it's really getting to the point where that's taking up a lot of the time. The benefits that's administered by the town, we now have 60/40s, we have
Okay.
70/30s, we have 80/20s.
Enough said, I got it now.
There's so many different categories
You're
there
right.
now, and so many different labor unions we're dealing with now. We have the dispatchers coming on this year, and it's more work.
Right, I
because we're-
realize now that all has happened in the last, say, over the course
Yeah.
of the last 3 to 5 years. Okay, thank you.
You? Andrew?
I have 2 minor questions. One is the changing of the title to Community Planning Director, I believe.
Yes.
Is that Tim Higgins' title?
Yes.
And again, this is probably my misunderstanding. I thought, is he fulfilling the role of town planner?
Yes, there was a
But-
lot of talk about that, but the job description that Liz Dennehy was covered under is almost the same. The selectmen had asked me to add in a few other responsibilities there, which I did, and they talked about going back to a town planner, but quite frankly, the job description that we had for the Community and Economic Development Director was way better. It was more encompassing. It covered, the old planner position only covered the planning board. This position covers planning, economic development, zoning board, conservation as needed, and reports directly to the town administrator. The planner position reported directly to the planning board and essentially the chairman.
I see. And again, I think Tim Higgins is a great hire, so it wasn't questioning the title or anything, but I'm just curious that because the salary schedule also has that town planner title, and just because I'm new to this, tell me, just because there's like a duplicate position on the salary schedule doesn't mean that you can necessarily hire for that position too.
We have to get funding for the position.
Yeah,
The reason-
exactly.
there was a reason I left it on there. There are a couple positions. The purchasing agent comes to mind. I think that's still on there. If we ever need it again, or, I have to state my case to you folks and the personnel board, but that's why we left it on there.
Gotcha. That was a small clarification. And then one other small question I had, I think for Al, when arguing about when justifying the COLA for 2%, which I think is eminently sensible, you mentioned the employment cost index, I believe, and if I understand that correctly, that's salaries and benefits?
Yeah, exactly. It is. It is.
And this is just salaries. This is just a
This is
2%
just-
COLA increase, right?
Exactly.
Gotcha.
It's an increase in the benefits. It's just how much does it cost generally for public administration, for employees, for the cost, and that includes salaries and benefits. So it's about roughly 2.6% in average.
Great. Again, I agree with both
And-
changes. Thanks for the clarifying.
And yeah, that's fine. I'll leave it at that. Your time.
You good, Mark? I mean, Andrew?
I'm good.
Okay, Mark?
2 other items. With regards to the community planning director. Is he also the grant officer now? Because there used to be a position on the table, but that's disappeared because it was absorbed.
That was Community Economic Development and Grants Officer. That was some time ago. I think that was Mike McHugh when he worked here.
But it's no longer
More or
on the table,
less,
so that's why I'm trying to
the
figure out where
grants
it's.
department it's me and the department heads who go for the grants. I mean, the chief goes for his own grants. It's the department heads who go for it, and we all pitch in. Roger Turner will go for, he gets a bunch of grants every year. He usually needs, our help here or there, or the police chiefs, but,
There's no position that's exclusively to grants anymore?
No.
Okay. And the other is for the RTM packages. I'm assuming that the research that the planning board, the personnel board did will be part of that package, so they'll have the resources of, we compared these communities, these tables, and so
sure.
forth?
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense, and I think we'll put a PowerPoint up for them to walk them through it all.
Cool, thanks, Al. Thanks, Mark. Anybody else? Yes, Sue?
Along the same lines, I think you may anticipate a question about the new position in HR, so I would encourage you to.
I may just volunteer the information,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
kind of in my cover memo under the personnel articles, possibly just explain it a little bit further.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm having a deja vu from last Monday. You guys are- Go ahead.
Motion to approve the Article 3 changes to the new salary schedule as
Second.
recommended by the Personnel Board.
Second.
Second by Sue. Okay, we have a motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? It's unanimous. Okay.
In Article 4 is a no action. Al was asking me before this, why do we leave it on there? And it's just generally a placeholder that we have. The funding is built into the budgets, which you guys know, so that's a recommended no action.
Okay.
Move no action on Article 4.
Second.
Second by Sue. Thank you, Mark.
Okay. Good luck.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's a couple
Opposed?
days.
Abstained? Full count.
Thank you, and everyone be safe tomorrow.
Yep.
Yeah, too.
Take care.
I see you all. Bye-bye.
That's a rub.
Anything else?
I don't think the police chief was coming over till 7:45 because he
Want to
thought
do
it was
Media
in.
Corp?
Yeah, I know Jim's here and Jeff's obviously here, and
Jeff's always here.
yeah, you guys want to come up and I'll stick up here. Just to give you some background why Jeff and Jim come up here. You may recall that just about a year and a half ago, Walpole Media Corp came forward with their first request for about a half a year's worth of funding. These funds are paid through the funds received from Verizon and Comcast. The last two payments from Verizon and Comcast have been were received back in February, and each one was about $75,000, and one was about $74,000. There's currently just about $468,000 in that account. Marilyn confirmed that for me today. So more than that, you're telling me? 900? That's the number I thought, but
Yep.
yeah. So
But that's about to go down when we get funded.
okay, that's what they're
That's what-
considering.
right,
Once
that's
their
what-
full funding is in,
thinking
it
about-
It'll
dips
go
down
down.
to 462, so there's 918 in there. That's what Marilyn was explaining to me. We have been steadily receiving these funds in, so this will be the third time Walpole Media Corp has come before you requesting to release the funds, and they have their budget ready to go for you. That's it.
Well, I know the one question which and this was from one of the members, was just the capital request of 58,000.
Right, it was very shorthand, so it wouldn't have made sense. It made sense to, we all recognized it, but
Yes,
you wouldn't.
Selectman Studio to high def. Is this high def
Yes.
in here?
Yes,
Yes.
Really?
yes.
Okay, just curious. So, and from what I understand, so it's really for the room down there.
Main meeting room.
Okay, so should have been called main meeting room.
And I put that in my email, my bad.
No, that's fine, that's fine. I just for Pat's benefit, I know he's not here, so.
Tomorrow we'll punish him.
What's that?
We'll punish him tomorrow.
Pat?
No.
Oh, okay, Jeff. Like,
I can't.
you're not
punish
going
any
after
of you.
my
I can
guys.
only-
No, no, no. All right. So, and it's going to be similar equipment to this, or just the
Very
next,
similar.
basically the latest, greatest, whatever's on the shelf. Gotcha.
What's in there is actually, by our standards, is very elderly. And there's been some failure points with it, so it's time to be replaced.
That's what I do for a living, so you're not going to get asking for Pat. I'm cool. All right. Mr. Bowen, did you have a question?
Just gonna ask, kind of, are we seeing a lot of people cutting the cord impacting revenues, or do
No.
you anticipate it?
Nope, we've had that same discussion with some of our board members. It's actually a fallacy. People are cutting the cord as far as what they're getting in their television packages, because they're going to things like streamed video, streamed movies, picking and choosing what they want menu. They can't get those over a telephone. They still need their connection via Verizon and Comcast, and that's where the money is. Our money is not tied to what is in the TV package. It's tied to their entire service.
So it's the cable package too.
Right. In fact, the articles that we've read on the subject, and the numbers will reflect that, it's actually going the other way a little bit. It's sneaking up because there is no substitute for the bandwidth and getting the data, as the demands for data are increasing.
So just to give you some perspective, Tom, just looking at the numbers. So back in February 2016, we collected 76,000 from Verizon. February 2017, 78,000, and just last month we collected 75. On the Comcast side, 16 we collected 69,000. 17 we collected 73,000. Just last month 74. So it's pretty straight. You can see they're flip-flopping a little bit, but the numbers are still consistent.
And a lot of that has to do with the time of year and so forth, where their numbers fluctuate based on the quarter.
Okay, so the fact that people are dropping HBO or whatever doesn't really impact
No,
you.
well, they're getting something else in its place, and they need that bandwidth.
Bandwidth, yeah. Because I have to say, sometimes I feel archaic that I still have the cable like I do and turn it on like a normal person. My nephews and nieces are all.
I'm with you, Tom.
Yeah. I have the same problem. I feel the same way. I'm almost ashamed.
Then again, I still buy CDs and like to have the hard copy sometimes. So I am archaic.
Like
and
true
I do too.
confessions.
Don't worry. I'm with you.
You know, hey, whenever. Hey, actually, 2 weekends ago, when I had no cable for 4 days, I was back to Blu-ray. You know, thank God I had a couple.
At least you had power.
I did have power, so that was a bonus.
Hey. That was uncalled for.
But at least, you know, it's funny. You sit there, and 10 years ago, you didn't feel this loss as much, but you sit there without cable, and you're like, oh my God, I can't. The phone's down, the internet's down, so you watch Blu-rays. And you find out that the bonus sections are good again, you know, showing you how they made a movie. Anyway, thanks.
Thanks, Tom. Sue?
For you. This is not about the budget, but I'd just be curious to know, in the last couple of years, how's it been going? What are you doing with the community, with the students? I'd just like to hear a little bit about your accomplishments.
Do you want to?
Sure.
You go ahead.
One of the things that we're very pleased about is the training that we've been offering in Adobe products. And we partnered up with Patrick's team, and we were offering training all along, but in the last few months with Walpole Recreation, we've really been able to get the word out, and we've had a terrific response. More with Photoshop, but also now we're into Illustrator, and the week after next we start Adobe InDesign, and we're offering these classes for $5. And it's been really interesting to see who has been coming in for them, quite frankly. We're also offering some other interesting classes, including video on your iPhone, and marketing with social media, creating the best videos for social media. And we're also doing a digital photography class, Spectrum. This summer, we're excited to offer for the first time two classes that'll be in the morning and afternoon for learning how to do your own newscast. And they'll be coming into the studio and using the full control room and learning the lighting and learning the cameras and rotating through the positions. So we're putting the technology out there for people to learn. One of our biggest challenges is that the students at Walpole High School have a terrific foundation already during the day in their classes that they can sign up for. So to get them to come after school to do something that they're already doing in school has been a challenge. But we march on. And those are some of the things we're pleased about. Another big accomplishment this last year has been that we're streaming on YouTube now. In fact, this meeting right now is on YouTube. And that's been a terrific success because we're finding that people use YouTube almost more than our websites. It's a familiar place to go to. And that's really working out well for us.
So good to hear this, knowing where this outfit was.
I mean, there's a lot of other things as well. I mean, just the fact that we're here tonight, this is on the increase in the last couple of years from about 6 to 8 meetings a month to how many a month now?
Well, we're averaging between 5 and 6 a week. So do the math. I mean, it's a pretty remarkable achievement.
And then, as he mentioned with the students, part of that, too, is just that Walpole High School has many, many opportunities. So kids are torn in multiple directions. But it does help because there's a lot of overlap with things like film festival and television. But if you look at the student channel, you can see there's a real explosion in the both in the material that they're producing for that channel as well as the quality of it, too. So it's going to take another few years before that starts to translate into them coming over to our side of it voluntarily after school and evenings, that sort of thing. But considering it's only been actually 2.5 years, it's pretty substantial.
Right. Thank you.
Excellent, Mark.
Space needs. Do you have adequate space to run all the programs you want to run, or do you think you need to
Physical
expand?
space, do you mean?
Yeah,
or
physical space to produce everything you want to do and do all the training you want to do.
We could always use more.
Just inquire.
We're in a very tight building, and we're extremely grateful for the territory that we do have. So it's somewhere down the road. I mean, we'll have to look at expansion and so forth, but a lot of that is dependent on where the town goes and the school department goes, and buildings, and the building studies and so forth. For example, if there were a new high school, we would want to set aside money to have a larger studio presence in that. If it stayed where it is, we would probably be looking at putting aside money to expand out the side where our van currently is parked to, because that was part of our original plan, to add offices onto that side. So who knows? It all depends on, we're sort of the tail of the dog, so we're sort of watching to see where the dog goes. But somewhere down the road, we do anticipate those needs.
Okay. Thank you. You guys came in a great night. Sir Ted. Mr. Lee.
Through you, Paul. On the sheet that was provided to us, I just wondered if you could explain two of the entries. The increase in the van insurance and the increase in the health insurance. I assume the health insurance, there's another person who's been...
Do you want to explain that?
Yeah,
Sure. The van insurance, after this was printed, we received a refund because we had somebody at the time working for us who
Required a higher level of insurance.
didn't have a great record. And we chose at the time to entertain the possibility of paying that, but that person's no longer with us. So that went away. The health insurance is because we also had someone working for us who was on his wife's health insurance. We were very lucky in that respect, that we didn't have to pay health insurance. But now that person's gone, we're anticipating replacing that person, and we needed to put money aside for the very possibility that we wouldn't be as lucky this time around. So that's why the health insurance went up.
We want to be prepared to be able to offer all the employees that we have the same footing, so.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, John. Dick?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, through you. How many people are involved in the staff payroll?
Full-time or, full-time, part-time? When you say
Well,
involved, you
you've-
mean how many employees or?
Yeah, it says here payroll staff, 214,000, comes across 222. How many full-time
That's
equivalents is
three-
that?
When we're fully staffed, it's 3 full-time people.
Okay. And the freelancers are what, the high school kids or some of the
No.
people who work at night?
Yes, exactly.
He's good. No, you've got good guys. Okay, so the salary line's going up. What, 8,000?
4%.
Yeah, okay. Now, are they governed, Jim, by all this other payroll stuff?
They're separate.
We're a nonprofit corporation. That's one of the things that a lot of people in
That's
the
right.
town do have a little bit of difficulty separating.
Yeah, I
We're still a
remember
nonprofit corporation. We work under contract to the town. And we're created by the town, but we are not the town, so.
Yeah, no, I got that last year from you. Now, I can go after you for my cable problems or goodness, but I can't go after you for
No,
cell
you
phone.
can only go after us for the content of our 3 channels. We don't run
So I gotta
Comcast and
find
Verizon.
Who's the right person on the cell phones? Verizon's
That, you'd have to
dropped
go to
off
Verizon for that. We,
almost from Town Hall to the Norwood line, you can't get cell service.
I have to go to the second floor bedroom and lean out the window at my own home, and I've got Verizon, so, High Street, rather.
High Street, well, I'm Gould. I mean, you just can't make a call.
Yeah, all right, I look right out at Gould. I have to stick my head out the window there.
Okay.
I suppose I shouldn't be saying that because Verizon is the hand that feeds us, so.
No, I get it. I mean,
Indirectly.
I
but-
love Fios, but I don't mean to digress.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Wish
I
we could
talked
help
too
you
much.
on
You
that.
good? Be glad you don't live in Dover.
I'm all done.
Nothing against Dover, but they don't have cell service for nothing. Or Sherburne. You go on 27, you might as well just shut your phone off, listen to the radio.
Yeah, but it used to be
Churches.
good.
What's that?
The cell towers are all in the churches in Sherburne. Park at the Dunks.
Really?
Yeah,
Did not know
in the
that.
town hall, in the old town hall building.
Okay. Well, they're not turned on, so. Kidding. All right. Anything else?
Move favorable action on Article 21 for the Walpole Media budget in the amount of $467,504.
Second.
I think Dick beat you on that one.
me.
We'll give that one to Mr. Notebaert. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Full count.
Good show.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you every week. All right.
Nice seeing you. No,
Can I just say, I love being on.
really?
I'm just glad they spelled my name right.
Because on these, it's like when I'm there, but I usually watch
Getting
the
a lot of
planning board
respect.
sometimes when I have to catch up on something, but no, I don't watch it.
Oh, yeah. Chief, get him in, get him out.
Good, we have 3 channels.
Try.
Do you really think we're honorable?
At least on one memo.
Thank you for spelling my name right, or whoever did that.
Someone asked me, how do you say your names? I'm like,
Stas.
speaking, I'm like,
Stas.
Stas,
is
I
fine.
butchered it. I said it's
Yeah.
Stazarowskis.
There's a rest.
Stack of cabbages, stack of cabbages. Yeah, trust me. My poor kids.
I was just gonna say, that must have been a.
No, I've been
first
called
grade.
Stas since the 6th grade, which is really weird because I have like clients now that are like 20 years my senior. It's like Katharine Hepburn going, "Oh, Stas, I can't figure out the TV." You know, it's like, okay. But anyways, so
Hey, how you doing?
All right, so everyone's ready?
We're ready.
All right.
Two articles, so.
Well, as you can imagine, probably the number one complaint that we get in the police department is speeding. And the Municipal Modernization Act, which you should all have the handouts, sections 193 and 194 of Chapter 218 of the Acts of 2016 was a law created to reduce the speed limits in thickly settled and business districts from 30 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour, and also would allow communities to establish so-called safety zones. Just to really quickly give you how Massachusetts law is, we have two speed laws. Our first one is, and you should have that in handout too, is 9017. That's the basic speed law. All states have that. And essentially what that says is that anybody operating at a speed greater than what is deemed reasonable is essentially speeding. And they've established those areas as thickly settled, which means like a business district or a place where homes are about 200 feet apart for more than a quarter of a mile, which essentially is if you're on a side street in Walpole, that's most of our roadways. So if you go off the beaten path on, 1A or Route 1 or something like that, you're typically in a thickly settled or business district. Or exceeding 40 miles per hour in an undivided highway, 50 miles per hour on divided highways, or exceeding 20 miles per hour in a school zone. The other law is 9018. That law there is speed zones that are established by the state, and those there are all done through traffic engineering studies, and essentially are anywhere in Walpole where you see posted speed limits. So essentially Route 1A, Route 1, Washington Street, Common Street, those areas, when you see a posted speed limit, those at some point in history, the state did engineering studies to establish those speed limits. So if anybody exceeds those speed limits, you're speeding. So what this law would do is, if accepted by town meeting, it would give the Board of Selectmen the ability to establish all of our thickly settled areas and business districts from 30 miles per hour currently down to 25 miles per hour. And it would allow us to give input as to where safety zones should be. And I'll just give you an example. If you think of where the new police station's going, if you go by on South Street, you go into like that series of S-curves. We've done traffic studies there with our crash recon guy, and really, if you get up of 35 miles per hour, chances are that you can crash there. So that would be an area that you could propose that, you break that down to 20 before you get into that S-curve so that people slow down, get through the S-curve, and then get out the other side safely. Or even like North Street or High Street, where you have some of those really narrow streets and again, like hairpin turns where we could establish that as safety zones. And basically just reduce the speeds and try and keep our community safer. And for the most part, I think where this would really come in handy is subdivisions and close-knit neighborhoods where, you have a lot of kids and that kind of thing. And, we could just dropping that down another 5 miles per hour can go a long way as far as keeping speeds down and keeping the neighborhood safe. So that's pretty much it.
Sue? Sue first. Yeah.
This sounds fine to me. The only question I have is notice. So unless there are posted signs, how would the general population know?
Yes.
If they even knew the first rule, how would they know the revision?
That's a great question. So there's two ways the community can do it. The one way is that you do a blanket approach, and that you could essentially make all thickly settled and business districts 30 miles per hour. So then you don't have to really do anything other than that. But what you would do is you'd put signs posted at coming in and out of Walpole that would say that we've basically accepted that, and that those areas are 25 miles per hour. The other way you can do it, which I wouldn't suggest because it causes confusion, would be to pick and choose which streets you would want to do, and then you get into a whole, well, I want it in my neighborhood, and you get into that. So I think the best way to do it would just be to accept it and make all of our thickly settled and business districts 25 miles per hour.
And the notice to the public would be on signage as you enter the town?
No, it would be on signage as you would enter the town, because if you don't do that, we can't post speed limit signs like they do under 9018. So those, when you see speed limit signs, those are all done through engineering studies and everything, and those are the absolute speed limit. The other side is basically accepting 9017, actually modifying 9017 to say that those areas that have already been established in mass law are now not 30 anymore, they're 25. And that's, it obviously would take some time to educate the community, make them aware of the change, but
So that means there'd be a lot of warnings as we,
yeah, we won't be out there the next morning
Okay.
whacking people with going 26.
I'm gonna go Mark and then Andrew.
So on that last topic about the posted speed limits, those are all directed by the state?
Yes, and so this bylaw would also allow us to modify those speed limits too, if we so choose, but you would still have to go through the engineering study. And I know Jim recently, and I just recently got an email, I think it was on Washington Street, kind of like in the stretch between Common and maybe Pine, where some residents want to see about reducing the speed limits there.
You got two blind hills.
Yeah.
Especially if you're coming from the south side up.
Right, and so those areas there, we can't just, I can't just say, yeah, let's change the speed limit and reduce it. There has to be a whole engineering study done. The state has to come in and then they could reduce it. And we can do that, like if, you could reduce it on 1A, a state highway, but we would have to go through a little more stringent process than just allowing the community itself to change speeds.
Okay, good. Andrew, then Ron, then you.
Has there been any studies about the impact on traffic, if this would affect speed limits on roads approaching the downtown area or other areas
Yeah.
of traffic congestion?
There's been no studies. I did look at the towns that have accepted it. The closest one to us so far, Braintree did it. Dedham, I think Norwood is considering it. But there's a series of towns that have already done it. I don't think there's any studies that are going to say that, especially since it's so new. So there's still towns that are going through the process. But just speaking from experience, I know that typically, I rode the motorcycle for 5 years. I know, but you're sitting on the side. If it's 30 miles per hour, I think most people know that I can try and hit 40, and hopefully I'm not going to get stopped type of thing. 38, something like that, where we're reducing it down another 5 miles per hour. Even if somebody's like, well, I'm going to go 30 or 35, like it still kind of did its job as far as, bringing the speed down a little bit more. So I think it does make it does make the community, especially the tight-knit neighborhood, safer.
That's it.
I'm going to Ron, then you. Mr. Mariani.
Oh, thanks, Chief. Are any of the main roads going to be 25?
No, because the most of our main roads, Common Street, Route 27, 1A, Route 1, those streets are all already done through the state. Those are all under 9018. So all those speed limits would stay the same, unless we see issues that we want to go through the engineering study and try and reduce it. I will say that the state has been known to come in, do engineering studies, and actually increase it. You could have an area that was 35, and they come in and do the study and say, well, geez, it shouldn't be 35, it should be 40, and they actually raise the speed limit. So that's been done. So we'll be very careful where we pick and choose to do that. But one of the things is, school zones, for example, here in Walpole, when you go, they have to be on the school has to be on the main road, the traffic, where the entrance and exit is, has to be on the street, and it has to be elementary schools and middle school below. So we have areas in Walpole where you'll notice we have more advisory signs that say where you're coming into a school zone, it's 20 miles per hour, but we can't enforce that because it's already an established speed law, and it's not technically under the definition of a school zone. So we could even go in and pick some of those safety zones around our schools and make it 20 miles per hour all the time, so that it's, and we would have the ability to enforce it too.
Hey, Chief.
Hey.
Gould Street, you know, where I live, is just down from Fisher, 20 mile an hour. Then when you leave it, people go like hell, you know, because it's straight all the way to north. That'll be 25 outside the 20 zone?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to embarrass myself with Officer Koenig stopping me again.
Yeah.
Because I always forget when I leave my house, I see the sign and then I try to, because sometimes he's sitting there. And
Yeah, you could, that would essentially, any thickly settled, basically any streets off them.
that will
the
really
main beat,
work in
yeah.
our favor though, because even he, you know, people know who he is and he lives across the street from me, but it's hard to get the neighbors to slow down. I mean, I watch the ladies and the men drop their kids off for school and they're putzing around, and on the way out, they're coming back towards north, they're going 40.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well,
okay.
I'll give you another good example too, is Johnson Middle School. That a few years ago, there was a teacher that was crossing the street before we got the high visibility pedestrian crossing there, and they were almost hit. And because it was kind of getting dark out, and she was almost struck out there, and we tried to get the high vis signs up. But that's an area, like, that's a good stretch that we can make that like a safety zone, so that when people,
Right.
I know, yeah, they're gonna get to the other side, and they're gonna, sometimes
No,
they're
it's a
gonna
great
gun it, but at least you slow them down
improvement.
coming into
I
it.
think it's a good policy. The only problem I have is it's hard to go 25. I mean, I can't even do 20 when school's in, except when I'm feathering the brake, because the gravity pulls you along there.
And that's something the community should consider. I mean, if you think it's too slow, then
Oh,
it's
no,
up
I'll
to
be
all of
happy
you.
with
If you
it,
think
but-
it's good, then.
But I'm vulnerable to Scott.
Where do I send
Thank
my
you.
checks into?
John?
Through you, Paul. Yeah, so for the last 30 years or so, I've driven from Union Street to Norwood Central train station on Pleasant Street. And about 25% of the time, there's a Norwood police car at the bottom of the hill there. I won't say that I always drive the speed limit, but I probably drive the speed limit as faithfully as probably anyone who drives that road. And it's a 30 mile an hour limit. And when I do that, it is very unusual where I don't create a traffic jam.
When you're going that slow?
Correct. And I just want to express a certain skepticism that having a 25 mile an hour limit is going to solve any problems. I think that the bigger problem is not enforcing the 30 mile an hour limit that is in place. And I think actually that 25 miles an hour, if we all left tonight and drove at 25 miles an hour to our houses, we would find it very, very difficult to do that because it's extremely slow. So my own personal feeling is that I can see this in a school district. That makes complete sense to me. But outside of that, I'm actually very skeptical that it should be reduced to 25. I think what's more important is it should be enforced at 30. So that's my feeling.
I guess I'm missing the point with where we're not enforcing the 30.
I'm sorry?
I'm missing the point is, what do you mean by not enforcing the 30?
Oh, well, cars that are going faster than me, they're not pulled over by the at least by the Norwood police. I can't speak to the Walpole, but
well, I mean, we're not going to be we can't stop every single car out there. I think
no,
we
I'm not
can't
saying
stop
that.
everybody, but we do. I mean, we stop people all day long and all night long for speeding. Obviously, you're not going to get all of them, but
No, I understand that.
and that stretch too. Union Street is a 30. It's posted 30, but we couldn't change that one without a traffic study.
Right, but people don't go 30.
No, they don't go 30. And we write many tickets down there, too.
No, I see them out there.
Not to get too far afield, but the bigger problem is people going through red lights on Route 1 time and time again, real traffic hazard. You know, I've got 3 boys. I've taught them that you don't go, when the light turns green, you count to 3 before
Right.
you go, because it's just death waiting to happen because of the people going through the red, and that's where there needs to be more enforcement, honestly, but that's a whole different issue.
Okay, I gotta go out.
I live in a thickly settled area with about a dozen kids that are in elementary school with no sidewalks. Paul has seen me outside in the afternoon. And as a parent, I like this idea. I think it is still hard to enforce. I am a citizen who has called and emailed and stopped by the police station to complain about people cutting through our road during rush hour and in the morning when we're trying to get our kids off to school. As a parent, you want to be able to let your kids go outside and be outside after school. Get on your helmets, get on your bikes. And on my street, you simply can't because of the amount of cars cutting through. I'm on Pilgrim, so cutting through. And the moms, we spend the afternoon outside like this. Just, you know, whiplash, stops, when we're waiting for someone, we're like, one of these kids is going to get hit. Some of them are not as cognizant of, you know, what's going on. But I think enforcing it in every thickly settled area, it's going to be hard. But maybe it's the first step for people to know that
Yeah.
would get caught.
And you know, we're not saying the police are going to be able to stop people from speeding. I mean, people they're gonna choose to speed no matter what we do. At least it's getting an advisory out there that you have to cut it down from. Like I said, some people they'll push the limit and they'll get up at 38, 40 and a 30, and maybe this will bring it down a little bit. And you know, we are very responsive to speeding complaints, but we have 3 cops on the street, and we do the best we can. You know, your street and my street and everybody else's street, everybody speeds on too, and we try and get those guys out there. And you guys have been very good about. We got the third motorcycle, and we got the third motorcycle out there that's out writing tickets and doing traffic enforcement. So we do the best we can. I'm not here saying that we're going to stop speeding from happening in Walpole, but if we can get people to slow down another 5 miles per hour, I think that's a win for us, especially in neighborhoods like that where you get a lot of kids.
Thanks. Joseph?
I'm looking forward to you being on South Street to make the move because the cars are flying 40, 50. Dick said somebody went down there the other day, almost 60.
With trailers.
And you could hear the screech
Yeah.
to come to the stop. And fortunately, where the field is now, the corner lot is clear, they can see if anything's coming, and they just peel around the corner, and a lot of them are from Audubon area. It's a lot of young kids with their new licenses. So having the presence, it would be really nice to see it even be 25, because I don't think anybody knows what the heck that is.
Yeah. Actually, before I get to it,
Yeah,
Okay,
Chief, I
I'll
would
let you go.
urge a blast of communication, you know, at schools, you know, and ever we
thing I love
put on the website here. Just get the message out of what we're trying to do. I think it's a great effort, and you know I'm a big supporter of the police department, and one of the things that was brought to my attention last week is on 4 or 5 Facebook pages, there were pictures of Walpole police with little kids all around them, kids sitting on the bike, kids doing things. They're not afraid of the police. And I sit with the chief on the coalition, and there's kids from the high school that you wouldn't figure would be willing to put their time and effort into meeting with them. And I just think that stuff's really good. The other thing that I wanted to ask is, what about this application I hear about that shoots people to the best routes? Like
Waze?
up
Waze.
Kendall Street, if it's a traffic jam? Is that
Waze.
causing you trouble?
Well, you know where it causes most of the trouble is during stadium events, because
okay.
If you're stuck in traffic anywhere and you change your route, it always will divert you down Washington, or it will divert you down
right.
Winter Street to Summer, and
The
That-
person that talked to me was 1A, they get down to Country Kitchen, and then it tells them to take the left, what's that, Kendall Street? And then they wind through little local neighborhoods
Yeah.
to get there. But that, I don't even know what you must know, Stas,
Yeah, what about it? What's the app?
about the app,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's Waze. Yeah,
What is it?
Waze.
Kendall Street would actually be, that would be an area that we would look at
Yeah.
as far as a safety zone, because when we have a lot of crashes, well, Kendall at East, obviously, but there's also kind of an S-curve on Kendall Street and a couple of places where you go up and over hills. We've done crashes right at Reconstruction at school in Kendall, and if you've ever been at that intersection pulling out taking a left onto Kendall, the crest of the hill is there. You can only, if you're doing 35 over the top of that hill and someone's pulling out, that's a crash. I mean, you don't have enough time by the time you see the vehicle and apply the brakes to stop. And we've had that one happen 100 times, but that might be an area that you go into that S-curve, and that could be a safety zone. And those we would do that based on crash data. Like, we'll take a good look at the crash data, go before the Board of Selectmen and say, hey, this area here, we've had X amount of crashes, and maybe this is a spot that we could look at. Areas like Short and Wash and Polly Lane that we have, that makes the top 200
Really?
crash sites of the state every year.
Yeah.
So there's areas that we could really look at and pay attention to.
All set.
You good?
No, I'm good now.
Can I talk?
Okay. So, I like talking to the chief.
I love you, man. Don't worry about it. I have no problem with really any of this, but much to what's been commented, I think the challenge is going to be education. Like, my building's on South Street, and I'm in total agreement. Like, there's a lot of trucks and trailers, and a lot of my neighbors drive. I don't know about Audubon, but I mean a lot of my neighbors on South Street drive quick. Everybody drives quick on South Street, including some vehicles that happen to have the town of our name, the name of our town on it, but that's a side note.
Truck number, I'll take care of it.
I'm not gonna be a tattletale. So the point is like getting this out to the masses. And then the other question I have is like on some of these roads, like Fisher's unique because as you come towards Maine, right?
Yeah.
It's like 40, and then it's 30, and then drops down to 25 for like the last quarter mile.
Yeah.
As educated by one of your staff to me. So I didn't know. Well, because there's no signs. Like you see the 40, which is because Fisher opens up a little bit because, as you know, north is a mess.
Yeah.
I think it's so narrow. And then so there's part of his education, and then the other thing is, education. Because people are going to speed regardless. Like I'm with you. I purposely pull out of West Pine onto West, and with my coffee, doing about 30, 32, and I just love seeing the backup, because everybody just cruises right up from like Beethoven, that area, and they're just flying down West Street to get to 1A or West to cut through town. Nope, just sit there. I love it. I absolutely love it. Because again, I've been educated by your staff as to what the speed limit is
and
around my neighborhood.
that would obviously take some time. Fisher Street again is another posted area that's all done by the state, from Maine all the way to just that stretch from Maine to north. That's all state mandated. But yeah, I mean, and to the point about the enforcement, I'm not saying we have the ability to go do more enforcement than we already do, but the awareness side of it and the education side of it and keeping the speeds down a little bit, especially in the neighborhoods, I think would go a long way as far as, keeping the roads a little bit safer. And that's why I'm bringing it before the boards.
Right.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. The units you have that you put on the side of the road tells you how fast you're going. How many of those do you have?
One.
One?
Yeah. We also have a, most people probably don't know this, but we have a pole speedometer thing too that we put on a telephone pole. So when somebody calls and makes a claim that, you know, everybody is speeding on the street, we go out and we put this device down there and we leave it up there for about a week, and it tracks the time. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, most of the time that, you know, it's a 30-mile-per-hour zone, the highest speed was 38 for a whole week. So we part of why we use that device is so that when we do get the speeding complaints, we can put it up for a few days, get an idea of how much the speed is, when the speed is the worst, obviously usually between rush hour and that kind of thing, and then we can base our enforcement efforts around that. So that's much more effective than the actual, usually we put the speed limit sign and they see how fast they can go, measure, see how fast they can get it up.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Do you use that much? I don't see it much there.
We do. Not this time of year, we don't. But the problem, like, you can't put it out in really cold weather because the battery
Tell
dies.
people what the speed.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
a visible place,
Yeah, but if the town decides that this is the route they want to go, we would obviously do a lot of outreach. It has to be posted on it has to go on the state website. It has to, you know, we'd put it out on pretty much all the media ability that we have and educate.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. That pole sign and the other speed limit sign, as we do move towards communities and neighborhoods, would that be a mechanism by which we can help get the word out? By putting those in those locations for the first month that those locations are being reduced in speed?
Yeah.
And maybe even the other roaming boards that we put up to announce town meeting and other things, put those in those community locations so that as they come through, hey, by the way, you're entering Walpole, speed limit on this end of town is all going to be 25, and just get the word out that way.
And that's basically what Boston did it. Boston was the first community to, every side street in Boston is now 25 miles per hour because the whole city is essentially thickly settled. So if you go off of any main street in Boston that's not posted, it's 25 miles per hour.
This is, just to get back to the notice thing again. This is such it's a big change in the sense it's only 5 miles an hour, but so many places in town will be impacted. I'd almost think, you know, if it's possible to piggyback with the annual census form that goes out where everybody is put on notice, because I think that's just a more effective way to make sure every household gets the notice right in their face.
Mm-hmm.
And if that is done or could be done, the other thing is sort of, I've mentioned this before, amazing how many houses don't have a clear address, a number on them. And I often think when I'm trying to find an address and I can't see it, I think, what if this person needed an ambulance? How would they, or their house was on fire? So, I mean, I think public notice of those kinds of things is really helpful, because I think a lot of people don't think about it and don't understand, you know, the possible tragedy that could come from not having an address being clearly posted. And in this instance, just making people understand in a way that they can't really miss it. So, just an idea.
Mark?
Actually, another option would be the quarterly tax bills, because then if we make an update in July, you know, they'll find out about it when, you know, November's bills come out in October, but if we wait for the census, it's not until February, so the tax, you know, just including a town map and saying all highlighted areas in yellow are 25 zones or 20 zones, so a person looks and says, okay, wherever I go in town that's not Main Street or this, I'm at 25 miles an hour.
Yeah. No, that we would certainly do that. And then after town, you know, if this passed at town meeting, we'd have the whole summer to pretty much educate people and, you know, we'd be out
And
there.
tax bills end of June going out.
Doing 31 and the 25.
Want me to make a motion?
Please. I'd love
I don't
for you
know
to make a
what
motion.
article number is this.
It's the tie. I love the tie. It's very Easterish.
What is it? 27. 27. I make a motion to approve Article 27.
Second.
Second by Mark. All those in favor say aye.
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 Yeah,
Opposed?
27 and 28.
Nay.
John? Abstain?
What was a nay?
I think that's good. We can make it
28. I think we...
Move favorable action on
trying to protect our
28.
children, we're trying to
Second.
protect our
Second by
elderly.
Sue.
I mean, it's a good thing.
Which was
Not a
28?
bad thing.
The designated safety zones.
Dad drives the motorcycle across the street from my house.
Any further discussion on that?
People
No?
that stop them with their
No?
children now, and they put them on the bike, and they let them.
Mr. Notabart, we have a motion on the floor, sir.
Okay, I'm
For
sorry.
28. All those in favor of 28, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Full count. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
That's it. Brief update. I know it's not on your
Please.
agenda, but probably all asking what's going on with snow and ice.
How much we got left for tomorrow?
Prior to last week, we were looking okay. We had about $260,000 left in that account, which was great for come March. After the storm tonight, we'll be in deficit mode. We got it down to, with these two last storms that just happened, there's about $150,000, $160,000 left in there to have the contractors and our guys go 24 hours a day. Drew and I figured it out today. It's $139,000. That doesn't include any damages to plow blades, plows, equipment, stocking the salt shed afterwards, and, oh, by the way, the St. Patrick Day event is on Friday, so we have to do downtown cleanup, and that's about $20,000. So just a heads up. Good news.
Great. Great. Andrew?
To clarify that, $139,000 per 24-hour period if you're running full capacity.
Everyone, yeah.
Wow.
Contractors and contractors are about $4,500 an hour, and our guys are about $1,300 an hour.
Yes, sir.
For you. Tell me about that $20,000 cleanup.
To clean up downtown, which we've done only once this year, to have the contractors come in with their loaders and equipment, and for our guys to stay on from, usually it's from like 9 or 10 to about 7 in the morning, to clean up downtown, to make it safe for walking.
You mean clear the snow away?
Clear the snow,
Oh,
clear the
okay.
piles, clear the sidewalks,
I
yeah.
just meant it was going to be such a great party, they needed.
I wish.
Just wanted to clarify.
That'd be
Saturday.
Yep. Cool. All right. And what's up for Thursday?
So Thursday, you have capital budget on.
Yeah.
Capital budget is scheduled to meet tomorrow night to consider, make their recommendations. We're anticipating we will be closed tomorrow and the meeting will be canceled.
Meeting
So
Wednesday night.
we've gone ahead and scheduled capital to meet on Wednesday night at 6:30. Their items, they just have the school department in. I have gone ahead and made some changes to the capital based upon the conversation all of us had with the school department at the library. I've moved the bleachers over to the borrowing side at $65,000. Mike Fisher told me he'd come up with $20,000 out of his facilities account, basically the rental charges that he charges to basketball and whoever else rents the buildings. Funded the Chromebooks at $160,000, bumped up the, school security. I gave them what they're asking for. I bumped it up another $5,000. So they're happy. Link sent me a nice email today, so I think we'll be able to do everything right there. So Marilyn and I talked, how are we going to fund the 65 grand? We're going to do like probably a 3-year ban or something like that on that one. So we'll be able to fit it in there and make it work on the debt side. So that's it.
Okay. All right. So we're still on for capital. All right. Cool. Anybody else?
To adjourn?
Yes.
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
See you Thursday. Thank you.
Everybody be safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we're back to our old